All right. Thank you so much, Ellen. And thank you to all of our participants here for the repeat performance of the fabulous Dorothy Harman, who graciously agreed to return and present this week. We had a bit of a hiccup last week, but we've added some security protocols this week, and we are working proactively to make sure this is a safe environment for everyone here this evening. Dorothy, without any further ado, the time is now 6:02. Before I turn it over to Dorothy, I just want to remind everyone that Sarasota University is a 100% online university offering bachelor's, master's, and now a doctoral program in Montessori education, Montessori leadership. And Dorothy, I'll hand it over to you. Again, thank you for coming back this evening.
Okay, thank you so much for having me. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And here we go. Are we able to see?
Yes, it looks great.
Fantastic. So my name is Dorothy Harman, and yes, this is take two of our evening together. And I just think that's appropriate because I don't believe one can talk enough about the relationships between parents and educators and parents and schools and communities that we build in support of children. So if you are joining us for the second time, you may hear a bit of the beginning. Some of my stories may repeat, and I apologize for that, but I'm going to go ahead and go with that format anyway, in case you are new to the to our environment. So, I began my teaching career some time ago. I was a certified traditional teacher before my final realization of Montessori training and certification at the EC level. But I began teaching at the Department of Defense schools in Germany when I lived abroad, and then moved to the extreme remote areas of the Mojave Desert in California, where I was a substitute teacher in a traditional program and was subbing in the local um, public schools. And I was a bit surprised, a bit aghast to find 39 children in rows and columns at the age of 5 and 6, and with no PE, no library, a speech pathologist that came once a year. It was just not the ideal setting. And my daughter was kindergarten age, so I decided I was a certified teacher. I was going to homeschool her for kindergarten. Well, as one does, news travels quickly in small communities, and I had a knock at my door, opened my door, and a woman stood with her 5-year-old son at her side, introduced herself, and said, "This is Trey. Will you homeschool him?" And I thought, well, I'm not sure it works quite that way, but this is California. We'll see what happens, right? So, 6 families later, I wound up having a homeschool. We were a private school, and a total of 6 families, and we did everything together. We went on field trips together. We even vacationed together. We celebrated children's birthdays. We had numerous sleepovers at Miss Dorothy's house. And it was just a very intimate and lovely setting. And what I observed in the children was how they really flourished in this intimacy. So, sometime later, a year later, I was able to realize my Montessori journey and moved to Omaha, Nebraska, where I was pursuing my training and went into a public Montessori setting. Much different than my school of 6 families. In my public Montessori school, we were a school within a school with a total of 700 children, 350 which were Montessori children, 350 which were traditional ed children. And my first classroom had 44 children. So I went from this intimate setting of 6 to perhaps 40 some families. And I took that commitment to family, that commitment to to intentionally create community into this much larger setting. But it worked a little differently. So this is the culmination of 30 some years of thinking about how and trying out strategies of how to bring the intimacy of six families to larger communities. And so we're going to go ahead and get started. Oh dear. There we go. So I like to start with some storytelling. This is the story of a monkey. And inside this beautiful jar, he has a delicious banana. And he reaches inside and tries to pull out the banana. But the banana's horizontal. So when he reaches the narrow top of his jar, the banana won't come out. Our monkey drops the banana. He reaches back in a second time, does exactly the same thing, pulls up that banana horizontally. Same outcome. Releases the banana, reaches in a third time, and no matter how many times he tries to get his banana, he just can't remove it from the jar because he does the same thing over and over and over again with the same results. When we look at that, we have to shift our thinking. Our monkey needs to try something new because what we think about is how we transform. So our monkey obviously needs a new strategy. And sometimes in school settings, we can hear the rumblings of, whether it be in the parking lot or it be in the teacher's break room or wherever it may happen to be. I just love everything about my job except for the fill in the blank, right? That kind of thinking is not transformative. The first thing we need to do to transform and build community is to want to do so and to change our own thinking. The only person that we truly have any control over is ourselves. We might think that we have some sense of control in an environment of 40 some children. That's not true. We may believe that we have control over what is going home. That's not true either. What we control is ourselves, our thinking, our actions, our reactions. So I return us to the Montessori method, to the triad. Now, this is not a refresher course on Montessori, so we'll just look at this slide and then move on, because I want you to think about another prepared environment. So yes, the child is there, the teacher is there, but a prepared environment with as much attention to detail and um, intentionality as we prepare our physical environment. If we took that intentionality into our relationships and fostered that with the same vigor as we do and love that we do with our environments, I think we'll see our thinking shifts, our outcomes change. No, gone will be the days of seeing the same thing occur over and over again because we have taken that courageous first step and been willing to think differently. So let's think of parents as another, and their children and families as another prepared environment. So one of the things that I think is very helpful to realize, we know as Montessorians, is the better versed we are in sensitive periods, human tendencies, the philosophy behind our pedagogy, the greater we are able to meet the needs of children. What many adults, educators are unfamiliar with is that our parents are in the developmental processes also. As their children are developing, they are in a period of development also, not according to their age, but according to the age of their child. And researcher Ellen Galinsky, author of Mind in the Making, among many others, including 6 Stages of Parenthood, likened it to these particular 6 stages, which just happen to fit very nicely in Montessori's planes of development. So the very first thing that I want us to take a look at is this beautiful child in development in the womb in our image here. Image making is that process we go through when we know a child is on its way. I wonder if he'll have my sense of humor. Will they have grandpa's eyes? Will they walk early like their mother? Will they crawl later like their father? All of these I wonder ifs. They're also filled with, I hope, they are interested in art as I am. I hope they are eager to learn as I am. And all of those hopes, I liken it to a crystal vase. So imagine in our classrooms, if we have flower arranging or a special event, that dear, precious vase that we fill so carefully. This is what it's like to be a parent. All of these ideas go into this very precious vase that they will carry forever. Forever. As we see, this stage of development persists throughout a parent's lifetime, where all of those hopes and dreams have gone in. And this is important because as we respond to the developmental stages of children, likewise, we can respond with sensitivity to the developmental stages of their families as well. So, in a quick overview of these 6 stages, nurturing is the first stage coined by Galinsky, and that's between birth and age 2. So, we're back to our crystal vase. Remember, it had all of the ideals. For our infant and toddler teachers, what we see is parents who have realized that they hadn't counted on colic and put that in that crystal vase. They hadn't counted on blowout diapers, sleepless nights, right? These were not part of that image, but nature takes care of the child because they are so physically dependent upon the adult that this contact, this nurturing helps us to ride through that little bit of turbulence with our vase because of our constant contact with the infant and with our baby. Now notice our levels change a little bit. So this is mostly our infant and toddler environment until our toddlers become more independent, they become walking babies, and the emergence of language comes. And with that emergence of language comes that roar for independence. No, me, mine, and all of those other wonderful assertions of here I am and I'm my own person. But what does this mean for parents? It means, uh-oh, now real parenting begins. Now I'm worried for their safety. Now I'm worried for for their continued growth. Or they can't eat that what they found on the floor, so on and so forth. So now becomes the time of building parameters, right? At first, I looked at the word authority and I thought, this doesn't feel Montessori-ish to me. And then I thought about my 24 years as a primary teacher. What did I do at the beginning of every school year? Grace and courtesy lessons, ground rules. These are the expectations. At the beginning of the school year in a primary classroom, in many settings, it doesn't look very Montessori because we're doing a lot of direct instruction. When we front load what the expectations are, we know children are more successful. As we raise the bar in our expectations, they rise to it as well. But this may be a shock to parents, right? So it had been fairly easy when a child was kind of staying on the crawl around mat. Now they're into things. Now they're defying us. Now they're expressing their discontent. So this is the time that as primary teachers, we look to our parents and say, it's okay. This sense of I'm being challenged is developmental. This is what it feels like for you, and this is what the child is going through in their development. So that in each of these levels, we can share with parents, we're here with you. We're doing this too. We live with these children as well, right? We understand where they are, and we now have some background on where you are as a family as you're developing. So next comes the elementary years. So I love to use my little hand puppets here. So the first plane of development is this beautiful little circle, if you will. We sing the best songs, we color the best pictures, we've been included in everything. The teachers are called mommy is called Miss Lindsay, and so on and so forth, right? Such deep commitment to one another. Then the elementary years come, and our puppets start to look towards one another. And we adults sometimes feel like we're on the outside of that. So do our parents. So teachers at the elementary level, you may have parents who are experiencing the loss of that intimacy that was once where they were the most important person. Now, well, now there's something else going on. I also think about in terms of the social development when peers are interacting. Now, they're still new to social development, even at 6 years of age. They haven't been practicing it very long. Most of us that haven't done anything but for 2 or 3 years are not quite as accomplished as when we've had a lifetime, correct? So they are but they are new to interpreting what is going on. Sometimes what we see is in a desperate attempt to regain our position, we insert ourselves into the dynamics between peers. It may sound something like, "Dear Miss Lindsay, Johnny had a problem with Susie on the playground. How will you fix that?" Right? Instead, we offer to families without judgment, this is normal, typical development for this plane of development. I know you could feel a little left out. You may feel that why aren't I in the middle of it solving the problems like I used to do in the first plane? So this compassion and this awareness helps us to meet the needs not only of the children, but the parents as well. Okay. Then comes the secondary. Well, so our finger puppets, now our hand puppets. So here was the first intimate plane, the second peer-based plane. Then we get to the third plane, and this plane is sometimes we're here, sometimes we're here, sometimes we're way out here. We are everywhere. So this is the period that Galinsky reports most parents feel the least amount of preparation for. And it goes to, and it's understandable because 1 minute we're, "Oh, mommy, let's curl up on the couch and watch a movie together until the phone goes off," and out the door they go. And we're left as adults saying, "What just happened? I just had a drive-by moment with my child, but it's done." And we never know when it's coming back or if it's going to come back. And so we're left questioning. And this is an important part of the realization with parents of secondary children, young people, that we are not very prepared for this. We understood and we were able to work our way through the intimate circle, the being left out a little bit, but this coming and going is leaves us questioning all the time. So there's a reason why we feel a little shook up at this time. But this is an important time, as it is at every level, to partner with parents, to have open dialogue. This is development. This may be your experiences as well. And the blessing is all of us in this group with children this age are having similar experiences. You're never alone on this parenting journey. Look at the age of your children and the surrounding parents likewise. I put departure there because that is the last plane that Dr. Montessori writes about. It's also the last of Galinsky's, and this is departure with the restructuring and relearning how to have relationship. The thing that is important, remember that glass vase? That glass vase never goes away. Why, when we are working with parents, intentionally partnering with parents at any level, we always have to remember that that glass vase, when we is a very precarious thing. At the interdependent level, that glass vase is now looking back at parents. Whereas all our hopes and dreams went in, now disappointment or appreciation may or may not be flowing back from that vase. It also is important to understand when we have an opportunity to discuss a child's development at any level and anything that may have any diversity of development, when we lead with, "I have a concern," you may as well rock that vase right out of their hands. And we wonder why parents, we say, "Oh, they're not ready to hear it." You bet they're not, because we need to form relationship first before we can talk about any development within that vase. So that's where a lot of my work has come from. So why talk about this? Why is engagement important? Well, you can read this on your own. While I share, the research has supports over and over and over again that parent engagement is important. The earlier, the better, the more likely they are to remain engaged. Sorry, first plane teachers, you are frontline workers once again. When parents become engaged with school settings at that level, they're more likely to remain engaged so that they aren't hearing from, as I did with my children, why are you here at the high school parent teacher conference? He has an A. My response was because I want to know more about my child, right? So we know that children cross our thresholds. They come to us, but they come to us not alone. They bring their home experiences, they bring their temperaments, they bring a wealth of experiences, language, and so much more complexity than what we see in that physical image. So you're going to hear me talk about throughout the course tonight, you'll hear me talk about the being and the doing of the child, okay? Because they are so much more than what they do. Yes, what they do is observable. Who they are, their being, reveals itself to us when we observe very carefully, when we listen for that sense of humor, when we observe for that compassion, right? And this is an important observational strategy to consider when you are doing your observations. Yes, I need to record what they are doing in my classroom, but I also need to know who are they? Who is this being? And what do they do? So the shift comes from engagement versus involvement. So involvement is kind of like when you go to the grocery store. You're involved with someone bagging your groceries. You say hello, how are you? You have a great day, and you say goodbye. That's an involvement, right? We were involved with one another. Engagement means that there's a commitment. Just by calling it family or parent engagement, we are setting the expectation that we are partners. We are doing this with one another. Our language starts to shift. Remember when our monkey changed his mind and tried some new ideas? Also shifting our language, being impeccable with our word, using language like together, with, partners. And we tend to, as educators, for some strange reason, we go to wonderful workshops, we gather information, we share with no one. Right? So share this information with your parents. This is important that they know that you are intentionally trying to engage with them in a partnership. Okay? This is not a secret. So we're going to look at why. And the why is in our brain. So children and adults alike come with three, we're going to look at three very simple parts of the brain. One being our brain stem, and this is where we have to examine, are we safe? The question for this part of the brain is, am I safe? We know that as children feel safe in an environment, why we use this authority at the beginning of the year to say, this is how you do this, and this is when you do that, is because it helps children to feel safe and secure in an environment. But this brain model is not unique to children. This also applies to families, right? So when we're interacting with families, we don't know what a lifetime of experience with school meant for them. Chances are you and I became educators because there was something about school that we were good at or we felt good about. That's not always the case. For some parents, their experiences with school were about guilt. They were about shame. They were about, I wasn't good enough, or I needed to be so good, right? So they bring that with them. So our first attempt before we start parent education evenings is to form a safe relationship, social relationships. I'm glad you're here. Um, this is how we do this is how we do that is important, but in small doses. They aren't going to read the 1.5-inch binder of protocol for the building. I promise you they're not going to. Bits and pieces doesn't feel so overwhelming. If we were to receive a textbook that's 3 inches thick and say, this is what we're going to complete in 16 weeks, we go, ah, right? This is a lot for us to handle. Small increments is how we develop that sense of safety, okay? When we move on to the next part of the brain, this is where we're hardwired for relationship. This is what we do intentionally in our classroom. We form relationships with the children. Not only do we focus on what they're doing, but we get to know who they are, who their being is, so that we can form relationship. And we say things on Monday morning like, how did Spike the dog do this weekend? Or did you go, tell me about your trip to the water park, or whatever that happens to be. That sense of we are more than just the work we are here to do. We are deeper than that. And we're hardwired for this. After we have parents that feel safe, then we need to approach that relationship. I submit to you to consider using the information from the beginning. What does the research say? What does about us working together? What is the advantages of us working together? And be completely transparent with it. I don't know parents who are going to say, no, I don't want to form a relationship with you for my child to excel in this setting. But again, we tend to keep it to ourselves, all of these wonderful ideas. But our audience needs to be informed as well. Then we get to the learning part of the brain. Now we can start addressing parent education nights, right? Now we can talk about sensitive periods or sensitivities depending upon our level. Our first meeting with parents has to be that security and the relationship. It doesn't take quite as long because we can be transparent with adults and say, okay, here's my objective. My objective is to help you to feel safe in this community and to form a relationship. Pretty easy peasy, right? Because it only takes, right, a village. We've heard this over and over again, but a village doesn't just pop up. It is intentionally structured, and this is some of the strategy I want to share with you tonight. First of all is transparency. Plagiarize if you wish. Hello, my name is Dorothy. I am here to gain your confidence, entice, persuade, inspire, whatever language you want, so that we can connect together and work towards the best possible outcome. Share it. Be impeccable with being transparent and be attentive to what you are saying. Do you use language like our family joining your family, right? Your family joining us. We're helping the child together. Will you help me help him? Will you help me help her? Will you help me help them? So on and so forth. That intentionality has to start from the very beginning. Remember that safety part of the brain, this helps us to feel safe because I know what you're up to. There's no trick here, right? Okay, if you're going to be this blatantly honest about wanting to form a relationship with me, maybe I'll just give it a try, right? My child will benefit. So, as another thing that, as we're being transparent, is to spend that reflection time as that transformative time. And who in the world am I introducing these people to? Who is this person? Who am I? As my children were growing up, three phrases every time they walked out the door: have fun, learn lots, make new friends. Have fun, learn lots, make new friends. Oh my goodness, this became my mantra of what values I had. Joy is important to me. Learning is incredibly important, and relationships. Not that we have to have cute little jingles, but once I connected with this, when I sent notifications to parents, I reminded them on my byline: have fun, learn lots, make new friends, because I saw not just the children in my classroom, but the adults that surrounded them as they were learners with me as well. So here's an idea. Perhaps a teacher feature. Share who you are. And there's a list of the things that I have included. We tend to be very separated. You know, we can develop these intimate relationships, these relationships that occur at drop off and pickup, but they don't ever really know who this person is outside of school. So this may be a list of that you may want to consider. I included my professional background, and my secret is I wrote this once. Every year, I went back in and I changed the dates. As my children grew up, I changed graduation dates or what they were doing as professionals. But my Montessori journey was still the same, right? And so once I had this tucked away in my Google Drive, all I needed to do was update and out it went again. The interesting thing is I also had my assistants in my classroom do a teacher feature as well. They were less comfortable with writing it, so I helped. Mrs. Schill, as you can see her name up at the top, um, included her favorite food as Snickers bars. Unbeknownst to her and to me and to the parents throughout my classroom, on Mrs. Schill's October birthday, she was greeted by Snickers bars of all sizes and shapes that were completely initiated. You know, sometimes our parents are looking for ways to say, hey, I appreciate what you do, and they don't know how. Snickers bars was how Mrs. Schill, that was her love language, were Snickers bars. Sharing information. So back in the olden days when I was in the classroom, it was emails, newsletters. Now we have our digital devices where most of our parents are getting information. Regardless of what format you use to convey information to parents, here's my suggestion. Same format, same time, and same location. So if we are sending out information on Tuesday some weeks, on Thursday other weeks, Fridays other weeks, sometimes at 9 a.m., sometimes at 4 p.m., parents don't know where to look for all of the information. And the information, sometimes we get so frustrated when we get into our own heads and say, why am I sending this? They're not reading it, right? They will read it if we make it easy, if we help them to be successful. We know that from our experiences with children. When children feel successful, they try it again. When they feel successful, they revisit it again. And that's when their deepest understanding comes in the revisiting because they are being successful. Adults have the same brains. We repeat what we're good at. If we are good at giving and receiving information, and I know where to find my information, then it is going to be, it should be consistent. It should be concise. Remember our 3-inch textbook? Little bits of information at a time. We cannot be frustrated because parents are busy, right? We can't be frustrated because they don't get around to. The reality is most of our families are dual incomes or even working second jobs. So we have to be empathetic. We can't change the culture. We can change our thinking. Sharing observations. So sometimes our observations are about, again, the child's doing. What are they doing? Oh, they're now working with division. Oh, it's an elementary material. The division. Oh, let's go back to primary snake game, stamp game, right? We know what they're doing. This little tool I designed, I was given, again, I said I was a public school teacher, Montessori teacher. I was given this poster because somehow children learn from posters. I don't know. I took the information from that poster and I made it an observation because the information was valuable. Oh, let's look at life skills. Does the child manage time? Are they orderly and kind with materials? Do they show self-control? And I made it a tool for observation. But again, these tools are as effective as are more effective when we share them with the people they involve. Right? This is not just for our purposes, tucked away in a folder somewhere. Share with families. Sometimes when we will talk about discussing challenges, um, that when we have documentation, we can let the documentation do some of the speaking for us, but not until we've established a safe relationship, we are deep into relationship, and then we can approach with our frontal lobe in a problem-solving strategy. So the strategy, now my materials, I spent 24 years as a primary teacher. Some of the things I'll share with you are appropriate at the lower elementary level. Some of them may need tweaking depending upon your audience. But remember, I want you to think about your thinking first. Okay, so is there a way to take these primary activities and make them appropriate for your setting? I use the strategy that I call toss the confetti. Teachers, as educators, don't we love our checklist? When we look at record keeping, we're like, yes, 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 I feel completed when I can see all those check marks. Toss it aside. When you toss confetti, you do not say, if you're tossing it at a wedding, red confetti landed on bride veil. Blue confetti landed on groom's shoe. We don't care where it lands. We toss it anyway because we know it's good stuff. So these are some strategies, and they won't appeal to everyone. And we don't need to keep track. With like confetti, we don't throw one tiny little piece and say, oh, we missed. Oh, well, that's the end of that celebration. No, we just keep tossing because it builds with the richness of the experience. So, some personal touches from home. Framed photographs of families, could be pets, could be, I did have an 11 by 14 picture of a wedding that came in the child's backpack one time. I don't know how mom and dad missed it that morning, but it surely came down from the wall in the living room and came to school that day. Something that says you are more than just who you are here in the classroom, what you do in the classroom, but this is a whole nother chapter of you. We love to see that part of you as well. But don't keep a checklist. It didn't matter to me who sent this photograph in and who didn't. For some families, this was an easy go-to. For other ones, nope, they didn't want to. I didn't care if they stayed in the classroom all year, if they were fluid and moved back and forth. Crafting, maybe we can reach some families through crafts. A shadow box is a wonderful non-bulletin board, right? It holds can hold a beautiful assortment of artworks. So the little wooden hearts that you see, man, I knew when the coupons were coming out to the craft stores, and I stocked up on 1 inch whatevers, and sent them home and said, your canvas is limited, but your imagination isn't. And you can see by the two examples that are enlarged there, one is used with a marker, maybe as easy as the child took it out of their backpack, colored it, and that was it. The other one has hot glue. There's one in there that has Mod Podge and some sayings on it. It didn't matter to me. I didn't keep track. I knew there was going to be a percentage of loss in my little wooden things, why I used my coupons to collect them. Um, but for some families, this was something they could do and be successful with, right? Quick, I'm successful, off it goes again. The picture of the children laying by the quilt, that's a decade quilt. It took 10 years for that to be completed. It was the culmination of hand sewing in the classroom. I brought in my sewing machine. They brought in, if you look closely enough, you may be able to, I can see some of them that I remember vividly are pieces of pajamas, pieces of old blankies, mother's saris, old blue jeans that may have been, someone else in the family. And they all came together to create this quilt. And all 10 fingers still here. The only instance was myself cutting my own finger. But never did a child sew me, although I was helping to guide through with that machine as their foot was taking care of the pedal, the wheel, the bobbin, learning all of the parts of this machine. But that's not everyone's cup of tea, and that's okay too. Let's try another idea. How about extending what you do normally in the classroom? If you have food preparation, if you do cooking experiences, if you have secondary or elementary children planning a party and they're going to have refreshments, send those recipes home. One thing we do know that is common amongst families is we do all eat, right? So this may be the avenue to reach a family. One time I have Raiden tell me, the snowball cookies were very good. Grandma liked them very much. It was May. The snowball cookie recipe went home sometime in January because we had made them in classroom. It didn't matter to me. I didn't have a clipboard. I released the outcome of these experiences. because I'm tossing plenty of opportunities out there. They weren't all developed at one time, but notice they're all non come to the classroom engagement activities. The days of being able to take a day off of work are very limited, right, for our working families. So we have to think outside of that model. That's what this confetti is about. That doesn't appeal to you? That's okay. Let's try something else. We're going to do a geology unit and study rocks. You are asked to share a rough or a smooth rock. The secret is I don't care if you spend hours at the mineral shop choosing just the right geode or if you pick it up in the landscaping on your way into the school building today. It doesn't matter. But now I do know that we're starting to study rocks. We're doing geology. So it doesn't have to be something that simple, but it's the idea that we have a common goal, we have a common focus, and we are with one another in pursuing it. How we get there, much like Montessori children, the pathways are varying. That doesn't appeal? That's okay. Here's some more ideas. Developed from the Flat Stanley and the elementary programs came Bud the Bear. Bud the Bear was a teddy bear that went home with my children back in the day when disposable cameras were the only way we had images. I developed roll after roll of the back of parents' heads driving home from school. Eventually, we got to the technology age of they were sending pictures or printing them out. But do you see the amount of handwriting in those journals? Parents, those are not all children's journals. Sometimes it was both. 100% participation, 100% in my entire career. This was never a letdown. But the bear did get lost in a box of Girl Scout cookies case once for about a month and a half, which caused much anxiety, but he eventually made his reappearance. But the amount of time that parents spent in documenting whether Bud slept in the bed with them, sat on the chair at dinner with them, maybe just rode in the car with them, whatever it happened to be. Now, as in a public school setting, I had children for whom English was a second language. They were English language learners. Even those children would find those families were so committed to having their portion of this journal that they would find someone to help translate for them. How touching was that to me? That they went that extra mile so that they could participate. This brought families into my classroom. I did their first entry so that parents could see what's an idea. So he would go with me to the grocery store. It didn't have to be something special. He didn't have to go to an amusement park. Just what did we do together? What did we eat for dinner? And this was a way culture was brought into the classroom and then shared and read to the entire group of children. And whoever had Bud, would reach into the hat, pull out the next name, and off Bud would go to the next family. A wonderful experience. That not up your cup of tea? Here's another idea. Simple research, what I know, what I want to know, and what I learn. We call it in traditional circles KWL, right? Our basic foundation of research. We have research devices in our purses, right? In our back pockets. This is such a simple way to include parents in the curriculum because it doesn't take long and everyone gets to learn some things in the process. Hey, why are we talking about clownfish? Oh, because we're learning about the Australian Great Barrier Reef, so on and so forth. Research not your cup of tea? How about data? How many plants are in your house? Um, Braxton told me he had 50 some plants in his house. And I said, Braxton, why do you have so many plants in your house? Oh, they're in my dad's orchid room. Your dad has an orchid room? When I did that wonderful survey at open house and say, do you have any special interests or talents? Do you think his father included, oh, I have an orchid room? He didn't think that was special. I certainly grabbed a hold of it. And I only found out about it because it was data to create this data chart so that I could involve parents at another level, right? Of course, then when his father came and shared the orchids with us, he also happened to mention that it's also where he kept his lizards. Well, I had him back again, where we studied reptiles with him. None of those ideas for you? How about simple wish list? It could be things that are purchased or things, empty toilet paper rolls. Keeping it ongoing at the same place, same time, communicated so parents know, oh, they're collecting toilet paper rolls. Or Donovan, who walked down the hallway carrying a giant bag of bird feed for the cockatiel. And the only thing I could see of Donovan were the red cowboy boots that were carrying it down the hallway. And in he plops it so proud and said, my mommy bought this for our classroom. I can afford it. I could afford to buy the cockatiel food, but this was another level of where parents could be engaged. During COVID, when we're all on Zoom, had to think outside the box again. Estimation jars, I don't care what size jar it is. I wasn't floating jars between houses. I did nothing that floated between houses, but they could fill up and estimate. And that's a wonderful tool for our elementary level where estimation is part of, and their number sense is stronger and imagination can deduce how much is in there. Living timelines. This is a tradition in our primary classrooms, but it doesn't have to stop at that age. I had a parent who initiated and shared with me during a graduation visit that she continued to add to the timeline until the graduation party. How touched was I to see that? That wasn't the goal, that wasn't the objective, but giving parents a very easy list of, okay, find a picture and tell us something. Could have been, fill in the blanks, whatever your format is. Donations, like I said, are so easy and could be inexpensive. And poor Caden, who opened up his backpack the one day and found just dozens of empty toilet paper tubes, who said to me, I don't know what my mom was thinking. As he brought his donation in, or volunteering at home, but being aware that we have to have very strict instructions. Okay, if you're cutting out lamination, I like this kind. If you need a something colored, provide the pencil. So that parents again are successful and have your your wealth of thank you notes ready to go. Okay, even if they're computer printed and you do some personalization on it so that they know that you do appreciate and see the time and energy that they have spent. It could be more traditional. Do you have a garden at your school? Can you cook at your school? These are ways that parents could come into school. But remember, I was looking at ways that they didn't have to physically come in. But these type of activities could be where parents come into your environments and into your schools. So not to dismiss them as unimportant, but to know that it's a little harder than when I began teaching 30 some years ago. Sharing successes are easy, right? That's the easy part of the job. Look how proud these faces are. Papers going home. This was my work day and I worked very hard and made good choices. She was self-evaluating. Xavier has a little sticker on his shirt that says, ask me about ... And then a teacher hand wrote for them, wrote for him the continent globe. One of the things that I wanted to address is as educators to not disrupt concentration for the picture, right? I loved the examples here because most of the children have eyes down. And we talk to our parents. You're going to get pictures throughout, but don't expect beautiful smiling faces. What we are our goal is for children to find their inner peace, their inner guide, and that occurs through concentration. So you may get a lot of pictures of hands-on materials, heads down because they are deep in concentration. But adults wouldn't know that. They're looking for those beautiful eyes and smiles. But this is part of our journey together. Whereas this is a safe place, we're in relationship with one another. Now we can share this information about what and how we're doing in our classroom. Then comes parent-teacher conferences. Parent-teacher conferences are like a brief touch. We don't wait until then. All this transparency should, I hate to should on someone, but we really need to acknowledge the importance of front loading, right? Transparency from the get-go, okay? So that by the time conferences come, we're greeting a friend, right? This is someone we've already gone through that you're safe with me, you're in relationship with me, because there are times during these conferences that we're going to have some of those more challenging discussions, right? But remember that glass vase. Parents come in. I've seen parents leaving parent-teacher conferences with 700 children in a building to see just one parent walking out with tears in their eyes, hoping that it's happy tears, right? We need to build relationship before this touch point. Here we are with our being and doing. Being helps to tell parents that we see the child, the stories, the anecdotes. Did you know Cameron has this wonderful sense of humor? He can make any group of children laugh. He told us the story about what your dog did at home, and the children were roaring. Suddenly, parents, you can see the body language. Relax. You know my child. You know them. You know their being. And those anecdotal stories, based on our observations, help to break that and break the ice, because maybe we've been engaging with them throughout the school year, but this is our first time touching face to face. Okay, make sure that we're communicating openness, belongingness, safety, relationship. Go back to the brain model again, because sometimes we have to talk about more difficult things. This is when we focus on our what is observable, the doings, not our interpretation of the person, of the child. If we have behavior challenges, we know that if we address that vase, no one puts behavior challenges into the vase, right? And I have a concern. Suddenly, we've got a vase that parents are desperately trying to keep safe, and they may not be ready to hear. But if we have a relationship with them, and we are comfortable with talking about knowing who the being is, this is not a reflection of who they are, but this is an observable behavior or learning difference or whatever it happens to be. And focusing on a parallel approach to problem solving, because we are in this together, not tattling on children. How often we hear that parents receive a note about behavior or something and they throw their hands up and say, but I'm not there. I'm at work. What am I supposed to do? Right? A parallel approach. Will you help me help him? Will you work with me while we support this? And to eliminate concern from the vocabulary, we're gathering more information. I'm conducting more observations. I need some support in supporting this particular area of development. What do you notice? You see, it's not a me telling you, you sitting there and shrugging your shoulders, not knowing what to do. I don't expect you to solve it, but I do expect us to problem solve. So after writing Intentional Connections, which is where all of the confetti came from, heads of schools approached me and said, okay, this is great, but what about the parents' responsibility? So I did some research with traditional Montessori and public and private schools, uh, surveying 100 plus teachers. And what do you want to talk candidly? When we're being transparent with parents, what do we want to talk about? This is the order of importance. First was foremost trust, right? Sometimes we just have to say, holding hands in safety and security and saying, can you trust this method, this choice for your child? Can you trust my experience? And we have to be okay if parents say, no, I don't, I can't. That's okay. Maybe a different setting, maybe a different classroom teacher, right? And being okay with it, not taking things personally. Having open communication was so important to teachers, but yet sometimes we're very random in when we're trying and how we're trying to communicate. Let's be consistent so the parents are successful. Tell them about engagement. Anything that resonated with you perhaps tonight, please share with your families. It is so important, and it's not an educational secret. It works best when we are transparent about working together. Autonomy. Remember the period of development where parents are new to the setting boundaries. This is novel ideas, right? This is new in parenting. How do children become independent instead of biting, our tongue and saying, "Oh my goodness, Bobby's being carried into the building again." Let go of that. Maybe Bobby's mom doesn't know what independence and autonomy looks like. So this could be an opportunity to share. Oh, I know you just want to hold them in your arms all day long, but this is what we're fostering in our community. Accountability, another piece. Okay, we haven't, look how low intellectual development is. What children are doing was number 6 out of 9 for teachers. Accountability, mistakes are welcome here. For many families, this is a very novel idea, but we have controls of error. It would be great if life gave us controls of error, but it doesn't, right? But being open to, we learn through our mistakes, so welcome them here, but it's okay. Instead of saying, "I didn't mean to do it," or "I didn't do it on purpose," well, but it happened, so what do? We solve it. We get an ice pack, we get a tissue, whatever it happens to be. It's okay. We're all going to move forward from this place. We don't have to be the parent at the elementary level sticking our head in the middle of it because we're left out, right? Allowing children to be accountable to one another. This is what community looks like. Intellectual development, sometimes parents forget. They are learning the children are learning through what they live, right? If you're listening to explicit language on the radio on the drive to school, we might hear it in our first plane classrooms, right? Just to be aware. They're not, oh, parents are specialists in their area of professionalism. But we kind of know some things about children. Discretion, if we have a disagreement, that stays removed from the relationship with the child. Also, this particular book was written for first plane parents, and if I disappear at some point, the computer people came for me on this one to limit or eliminate the use of those devices because they do interfere with hands-on learning. They are wonderful tools at the elementary and secondary level. Absolutely. But there's a little difference. We know that with the absorbent mind and the need for movement and those sensitive periods. And play. I use the word play instead of work. When I was doing my infant toddler training, my guide explained to me that we use the phrase work instead of play because it elevates the activity of the child. It's for our purposes. It's for the adults. We call it work. So with parents, let's turn it back and say, it's okay to play. It's okay to have uninterrupted time. Even if you have to schedule a day to be unscheduled, do that. And I think the most important part, Dr. Montessori, I love this particular quote. "I've served the spirits of those children and they have fulfilled their development, and I kept them and their families," those are my words interjected in there, "company in the experience." That's the nature of relationship. And we are a village that helps to raise children. So we should be a part of that company. Here's me in print. Intentional Connections is my the resource that has all those confetti ideas plus more. Intentional Connections, building parent-teacher partnerships, is the parent companion. It's like a 64-page book, a very quick read, and coming soon is the children's book with these same ideas about being intentional. Um, I can't wait for it to be released soon. So here's my
I can't
contact.
wait to see I can't wait to see the children's picture book, Dorothy. I didn't know that was coming out.
Yes, it's with the illustrator as we speak. So it's really hard to be patient at this point, but
That is so exciting. And I just have to, this time has flown by this evening, Dorothy. I've received a couple of text messages since we have the chat off today. A couple of folks who have my cell phone number have texted to say, "This is awesome. This is fascinating. This is so helpful." And Dorothy, thank you for your work with the children and families that you have touched in your career and the families that you continue to impact. I have to share with you that Intentional Connections is one of our textbooks at Sarasota University, and I just love it. It's a great resource. I think every teacher should have that book. Again, I don't like to should on anybody, but I just recommend it to everyone. It's such a great resource for all teachers. Montessori and traditional teachers can benefit from that volume. So I see we've got a lot of reactions coming up, celebrations, hearts. Thanks for your contribution. Thumbs up. Dorothy, thank you so much. And thank you to everyone here this evening for coming back after the interruption last week. We really appreciate you coming back. And Dorothy, thank you for your just your spirit and of enthusiasm and heart of service to our families. It's so inspiring to hear you speak. And I just want to thank you again for being here tonight and sharing your wisdom with our
Well,
group.
thank you. I hope there's some confetti you can take with you on your way.
Absolutely. I feel like throwing some confetti right now. And I think someone had a confetti reaction on
You sure
their
did.
Zoom account. So thank you so much. And y'all go out and make it a great rest of your evening. Again, thank you, Dorothy. And we'll see you next month at our next Sarasota Colloquium. Good night, everybody. Thank you, Dorothy.
Good night.